So I hope you can everybody see. Good. So just to kick off the presentation, I'll just tell you a little bit about work in Denmark. Well, my name is Dina and I work as a recruitment consultant together with my colleague Dennis, that is also joining us on the webinar today. Work in Denmark is a part of the Danish Ministry of Employment, and we're also a part of the viure network, which is the reason that why we have the opportunity to have a presentation for you today. So we're very grateful for that. So what is it that Work in Denmark do? Well, we try to help international job seekers to find job in Denmark and give them tips and advice on how to go about finding work in Denmark. At the same time, we work very close together with the Danish companies, helping them to connect with international candidates and attract them to the position that they are looking for employees to. Now, before I get into my presentation, I would like to show you a small video. It's a video called Denmark, the Land of Trust, and hopefully that's a good way to start our presentation. So I will try if I can share my video. Just a second, and I should do it. And the sound may start off quite high, so be prepared.
So maybe the Vikings didn't exactly serve as the best starting point for trusting us Danes. But a lot can happen in 1,225 years.
At Trust to Us, we welcome you to the land of trust!
Surveys show that we're the most trusting country in the world. But what do we mean by trust? Well, in some countries, it would be considered madness leaving your infant unattended in the street. But in the land of trust, that's how we stroll. 72% of the Danes say they trust each other, and that is the highest number in the world. Even the Danish wildlife are of the trusting nature. I mean, imagine this scenario in downtown Manhattan. Blind trust has led to a lot of things, and in our country, we trust our chefs. As a result, wild fooding has become mainstream.
Se, jeg har fået en hvid chokolademad med i dag, med skovmyre på.
Må du smage?
Ja.
Det giver sådan en god effekt med myrerne på. Sådan lidt citrusagtigt.
In Denmark, we keep our word, and we're never late for an appointment.
We have the most precise mechanical clock in the world, and since it was built more than 50 years ago, it has never been late. Not once!
Right now, the first act is starting. The capacity of the opera is 1,500 seats. That's a lot of jackets. And here's another thing. They're left completely unattended. But I better leave this one hanging. I trust someone will need it later.
We even trust our men to take maternity leave. This is Denmark, a bunch of trusting folks. Some might call us naive, but we believe that trusting one another makes all the difference. And you should try it too. Try trusting someone just for 5 minutes a day and see for yourself the magic power of trust.
Dina, tienes silenciado.
I forgot my sound. Sorry. Well, I hope you enjoyed the small video. I always think it's a good video showing Denmark from a different side. Now, let's get back to my presentation. So you can all see it. Let's see if I can change. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so what do we have in store for you today? Well, I would like to take you through a short presentation of living and working in Denmark. tell you a little bit about the Danish labor market, so you know what opportunities and what demand that we have in Denmark. And last but not least, give you short introductions about how finding a job in Denmark and how to go about applying targeted to a Danish company. Let's get started. So, Denmark. I don't know how many of you know Denmark or have ever had the chance to visit Denmark, but we are a very small country. We're only 6 million inhabitants, and 12% of the 6 million inhabitants is not even born in Denmark. They come from abroad. So we do have a long tradition in welcoming internationals to our country and to our community. Denmark is a quite flat country, not like other countries that have beautiful mountains and hills. Our highest point is only 171 meters above sea level. But what we do have is a lot of sea. We're more or less surrounded by sea. And no matter where you are in Denmark, you'll be no more than 50 kilometers from the sea. So that is quite nice during the summer. So we spend a lot of time at the sea when we're off. So because we're such a small nation, we have always relied on the countries surrounding us to get by. I think that's also why we've become such a great export nation. So 59% of our GDP comes from export. Our three closest collaborators are the United States of America, Germany, and Sweden. And if you look at the products that we export, we primarily export food and beverages, pharmaceutical products, energy, and furniture. So, what can you expect from life in Denmark should you choose to relocate to Denmark? Well, I think the most interesting is looking at what expats say. One of the things that most expats mention when we ask them, they say that it's quite unique with a high level of security. Denmark is a very safe country. This is also a very good example of this is also what you mentioned in the video, that we leave our infants unattended when we put them down for a nap. And we don't have any considerations about them leaving them unattended outside because we're such a trusting and secure nation. Another thing that they often mention is also that because 12% of the Danes, more or less, come from abroad, we have a lot of international communities and a lot of international events. So when you come as an international from abroad, there are a lot of communities that you can join where you can share experience and maybe gain advice on how to go about living in Denmark. And then there's our ever-changing weather. We do experience all 4 seasons in Denmark. This also means that we have a lot of rain. But in Denmark, we embrace all kinds of weather, also rain. There's the saying called, there's no bad weather, there's only bad clothing. So we just clothe ourselves according to the weather and still go out and enjoy our beautiful nature. On the downside, some expats say that Danes can be quite private. But also, when we talk to them, they say that in their experience, you just need to take some initiative. So instead of waiting for your colleagues or your neighbors to invite you out, you can take initiative. Invite them for a cup of coffee, or maybe to join you for a beer after work. The Danes will never say no. And when first you get to know us, we're very loyal, and you will have gained a friend for life. Then a lot of people know that in Denmark we pay a lot of taxes. And if you have ever had the chance to travel to Denmark, maybe you also think that it was very expensive in Denmark. Well, it depends on how you look at it. Because if you look at our salaries and our income, we actually are not more expensive than other countries. A good example of this is the Big Mac index. This shows how many minutes you need to work to be able to afford a Big Mac. And like you can see, if you compare Denmark to Italy, Hungary, or Portugal, you actually need to work only 70 minutes to be able to buy a Big Mac. You also need to look at what we get for our very high taxes. Because in Denmark, we have free healthcare, for example. But we also have free schooling. So when you take an education like a bachelor, a master, or even a PhD, it will be paid for in Denmark. And you will actually even get paid from the government to go to school. This way, they ensure that you're able to focus on your studies. And when we get older and can't take care of ourselves anymore, we also have free elderly care. So we have a very transparent system and where you can see what value you get for your high taxes. Now let's have a look at the Danish labor market. Well, like in the rest of Europe, I think the unemployment rate is very low in Denmark. Looking at February 2024, the unemployment rate was only 2.99%. And at the same time, our employment rate is very high. 78% of all women and 80% of all men go to work every day. But we still have a very high demand for both highly qualified and skilled workers. We have a lot of big companies in Denmark looking to expand, and that means that they need more employees. Many ask us, well, do we need to speak Danish when we come to Denmark? Well, the answer is quite simple. No, you don't necessarily need to talk Danish. In Danish, we learn English in school from a very early age. So this means that 86% of all Danes communicate very well in English. So it's no problem coming to Denmark without speaking Danish. And many big companies in Denmark actually have English as a corporate language. However, we always recommend that should you come to Denmark and would like to stay for a couple of years, it is good to having Danish lessons. And it's for free to have Danish lessons when you have work in Denmark. And you can take it in evening school if you would like. So if we look more into what conditions we have when we work in Denmark, one of the things that I think we're very proud of is this work-life balance. We only work 37 hours a week. Well, maybe that's not that unique compared to other countries, but I do think what is kind of special is that in Denmark, when we are off work, we're off work. And our managers and our employers will respect that we're off and don't call us for urgent tasks that we need to do. So when we're off, we have time to enjoy our families, enjoy our friends, and maybe even our spare time activities. Then we also have 6 weeks of paid holiday every year. And we can choose when to have these holidays. So often Danes have both vacation during summer, spring, winter, and fall. One thing that's also very nice about the Danish labor conditions is that if you make a survey, the Danes have a very high job satisfaction rate. And why is that? Well, I think that one of the things is that we always we have this lifelong learning in the Danish companies. So no matter what age you are, you can still have courses and upskilling yourself and gaining more knowledge and more competences your entire career. So you develop all the time. Another thing is also that you have a very high influence on your work. So if you want to explore new tasks or want to take a new direction, you have a lot of influence. And that is something that's very motivating and makes it exciting to go to work every day. And when we look at the Danish workplace culture, I think the first thing that I think of, and also what expats often say, is that we have a very flat hierarchy. This means that, again, like I just said, that you have a lot of influence. Because no matter if you're the manager, an intern, or a new employee, well, your opinion and your idea has a lot of value, and the managers will be open to gain your knowledge and your insight. And you will often hear that your manager says, well, my door is always open. And they mean it, more or less literally. So if you need to have a talk to your manager, maybe you have a good idea for the workplace, or maybe your workload is maybe too high at a given point. You can go into your manager's office and ask him for 5 minutes, and together you will find a good solution. Another thing is also that many expats say that when they come into a Danish workplace, they can't really spot the manager. And this is because that we have a very informal tone of communication, but also a very informal clothing, because we all equal. And like the video told you, Denmark is the land of trust. And this is also relevant in our workplace. So our managers trust that we take responsibilities for our tasks, and we do make sure that all our tasks are met within the timeline, the deadline. And should you make a mistake, or should you have difficulties managing your timeline, the most important thing is just being open, letting your manager knows that you made a mistake or you need some more time. And then humor. I think humor is very important when you look at the Danish workplace. We do think that humor goes hand in hand with being happy at our work. So there's space to have fun during work. A good example of this is that if you in Denmark make a mistake, for example, well, if you have enough self-insight, well, your colleagues will often have, they kind of mock you when you do mistakes. But this really just means that you're a part of the team. So you will all just have a good laugh on your behalf. And it's very common that when we make a mistake, especially in our office, I think Dennis will say that too, that then we need to bring failure cake. So we have quite a lot of fun, and then it's also a good way of just spending a nice time with our colleagues, having and enjoying our failure cake. Now, what might be interesting for you to look at is, if you want to go to Denmark, well, how can you find a job? When you find it, how to go about applying for a job targeted at a Danish company. So let's have a look at that. So earlier I mentioned that we do have a very high demand for both highly qualified and skilled workers. And I think no matter what sector you look within, you will find a high demand. So no matter if you're an engineer or an IT specialist, if you work within life science, business and finance, or as a researcher, you will find many good job opportunities. But also within skilled workers, we have a demand, both for chefs and waiters, construction workers, and industrial manufacturing. And the opportunities are not only for candidates with many years of experience. Because we have this high demand, many of the Danish companies have seen the need of creating these graduate programs. Graduate programs are targeted newly graduates that yet haven't gained any experience. And the aim of these graduate programs is really to ensure that you have the support that you need to have success in your first job. So you will have, we call it in Denmark, a buddy, a contact person that you can go to if you have questions or you are in doubt about your tasks or what it might be. You can find these graduate programs at Work in Denmark's homepage, where we have listed a whole line of Danish companies that offer these graduate programs. So I would recommend you to have a look at that if you're interested. Maybe some of you are still doing your studies, and maybe you have a couple of years before you graduate. And it could be interesting for you maybe going to Denmark for an internship and gaining some experience here. It's also a good way of getting to know Denmark and see if that could be a destination for you in the future. It's just important to know that if you're interested in an internship in Denmark, well, you need to be enrolled in a higher education program, and you have to still be studying to be able to apply for an internship in Denmark. It's also important to know that the Danish company expects you to join the company for an internship between 3 and 6 months. And this is really because it takes some time before you get to know the company. And for you to have a fruitful internship, it takes some time. So between 3 and 6 months would be what the Danish company would be looking for in an intern. Again, if you want to know more about the internships in Denmark, you can go to our homepage where we have gathered more information. So, where can you find the job vacancies that we have in Denmark? Well, there are several places that you could look. First and foremost, I would advise you to go on Work in Denmark's homepage, workindenmark.dk. Here we have a job portal where all the vacancies are written in English, and they're all targeted international candidates. So it's companies advertising vacancies where they're open for hiring a candidate from abroad, and they don't have the expectations for you to speak Danish to begin with. Then you can always also look at the viure portal. I think at the current moment we have between 3 or 4 million job vacancies at the viure portal. Of course, not only from Denmark, but from the entire EU. So that's also always a good place for you to have a look. And at the viure portal, you have the advantage that you can create a CV so that not only can you look for a job, but companies can also find you when they look for profiles in the CV portal. That's also a good way connecting to companies. Then Work in Denmark has online events like this one, webinar, but we also host online job fairs. At the moment, our next upcoming job fair is 20th of June, and it's always for free to join our events. So you're more than welcome to see if we have any vacancies for you at our upcoming job fair, and you're more than welcome to join us. And then, of course, there are the online career fairs that we participate in, where you can come and meet us in person, and you can ask us some questions, and maybe we can look into the career possibilities for you. You can always find these events, both online and on-site events, on our homepage. So if you want to stay tuned about the events that Work in Denmark is hosting, and maybe also read the articles that we post regarding international job search. You can follow us either on Facebook or on LinkedIn. Here we will post tips for your job search in Denmark. We will post expat stories, expat videos that maybe you would find inspirational for your journey abroad. And again, we will also post all the events, all the fairs that we are hosting and that we're participating in. So yeah, I would encourage you to follow us on Facebook or on LinkedIn. And the last thing that I would like to say and encourage you is that on May 28th, Work in Denmark and Novo Nordisk will be present on site on campus in Barcelona. And so if you find a job posting that you find interesting, and maybe you would like to meet us before applying to get some advice on your job search or on more possibilities, you could book a personal interview with Work in Denmark, or you can participate in one of the group meetings with Novo Nordisk. So it would be very nice to meet you on site and spend some time with you. I know you can also find job vacancies on US Spain National Portal, where they have posted several of the Danish vacancies. So I would also encourage you to have a look there. So I think I've been a bit fast. So I don't know if Novo Nordisk is ready, because we have Novo Nordisk joining us today.
Yes, we're ready.
That's perfect. So I will give the word to Novo Nordisk.